Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Digital Toolbox Podcast. I am your host, Enmanuel Tejada. I'm the owner of Landscape Maverick. We're a digital marketing agency and we help landscapers and hardscapers, and we also run this epic podcast. Today we got a special guest for you guys. We have Daniel from Magnolia Landscape Construction over at Tennessee. Dan, introduce yourself, man.
Hey, I'm Daniel Haynes with Magnolia Landscape Construction from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Let's go. Tennessee in the house. You're actually the first guest, Dan, that we have from Tennessee, so that's
Nice.
pretty cool.
Nice. There's some good
Yes,
ones,
sir.
so that's cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Dan, tell us, man, I mean, how did you get, and for anybody that doesn't know, Dan owns a pretty awesome landscaping company. So Dan, how did you get into landscaping in the first place?
I got into it by accident, actually. I was working another job at a mentally ill group home, and they wanted to change my schedule to a night shift. I didn't want that, so I started looking around for work, and my brother-in-law's friend owned a local landscape company in town here, so I called him. He matched my pay, and I jumped over. That was 14 years ago now, so that's how I got into it. And then once I got here, I just kind of liked it.
And so what were you doing at first? Did you start off with lawn care, just mowing lawns?
I was a
did you go
labor
right into
guy,
hardscaping?
basically. Labor guy on a hardscape crew. So did that for a little while. Labor guy on a maintenance crew. With the first company I worked at in town, I kind of got a little bit of everything and then ended running their hardscape crews. So ended up as a foreman year 2, I think, with him, maybe year 3. So ended up being a hardscape foreman there. Kind of moved on to a different company. Was there 6 years. Hardscape foreman there for 3, and then was a project manager for 3 before I started Magnolia about 6 years ago.
Man, that's epic. So you had a bunch of experience as far as from the managerial standpoint, from the in the field standpoint. So you kind of leveled up every single step of the way. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's epic. And so what made you make the jump then from employee to entrepreneur, owning your own business, taking on the risk?
Well, for one, I didn't really realize the risk it was at first. So knowing that now, maybe I would still done it, but maybe a little different plan. So company I was at was kind of going real heavy commercial landscape, which is I'm not very passionate about. I love residential landscapes, the relationships you build with customers. Usually the margins can be a little bit better on those types of projects too, just because it's not rush, not bottom dollar. A lot of the commercial stuff around here is just kind of bottom dollar. So I ended up starting my own to kind of work into the residential market here in town.
Oh, so you're saying the company that you were with was mostly focusing on the commercial side?
Correct. They were transitioning into commercial. We did a lot of residential, and then they were kind of shifting and doing a ton of commercial, which I really wasn't a big fan of. Just like I said, personal preference more than anything else.
Wow, that's awesome. And so why didn't you just go to another landscaping company and work there? Why did you start your own?
I figured if I was ever going to try, it was Tom. I kind of always wanted to. Obviously had done some side projects here and there. I'm like, man, I can make pretty good money at this. So I'd been curious if I could do it, to be honest. That was the big thing. My grandfather had his own company. Dad's got his own company in a different industry. But I felt like maybe it's just Tom, It was now or never if I was going to try.
Freaking love it, man. That is an epic story right there. And then what was your story of like getting your first client, your first customer? How was that?
First customer was a friend of the family. So priced a little patio underneath their porch, rented a ditch witch, and away I went. That was my first project. After that, I had sold one of the vendors. I had some relationships from my time in the industry. So those relationships kind of paid off later on. Started building with some local designers I knew that kind of gave me some work, things like that. And we just kind of snowballed from there and really haven't looked back since then.
It's epic. The beginnings of Magnolia and what it is now. And so where are you guys now, Dan? I mean, you guys are pretty huge. I mean, what are some of the details? Like how many people work for you guys? How many projects are you guys taking on?
Yeah, funny story. my wife's car was what we were going to use when we first started, broke down. So we borrowed my mother-in-law's minivan. So I've got a picture of the tools in the back of the minivan. She would take me over to the house first thing in the morning, drop me off, and I would work all day. She would come pick me up in the afternoon. So we came from that. Now we got about, there's 14 of us total, 14, 15. We got some summer help that's going to fall off. So right now we got 15 total team members running three-man crews, usually 2 hardscape projects at a time. And then we've got a smaller crew that just kind of does landscape stuff, some, plantings and things like that. They can also handle, like right now they're doing a small hardscape job, flagstone. So they'll do some smaller projects and things like that. But right now we're 3 crews with a project manager and just hired kind of a sales / customer care. So he'll kind of, once a customer's ours, they'll be kind of his responsibility all the way through. So,
Ooh,
and
that's
then
interesting. Does that role also upsell things? Like if somebody just got some landscaping work done, do they also upsell hardscapes and different
that's the
patios?
plan with him is basically like some customer calls into the office. He's trained to sell. So he'll sell, but also manage that customer. That way the customer is not sold and then left alone. So he's going to take that customer, and then essentially from the time that customer calls in and wants to work with us, he's their baby. Afterwards, the warranty, the whole time. He's built that relationship, checks on their warranty, follows up with them after the project is finished, trains them, new irrigation system, hardscapes, the maintenance, what all that looks like. That'll assist, because we do some bigger projects right now, but his role will essentially be to just kind of, like I said, customer care kind of the whole way through.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I've actually not heard too many people that have that type of role, which is awesome. And so you mentioned that you guys have three-man crews, so that's 9 people that are in the field, and it's 15 of you guys total. So one of those guys is customer care. What are the other 4?
My bad. We have one crew that runs 4 guys. We basically keep an
Oh,
extra.
one crew
Yeah,
that
my
runs
bad.
4.
That's
Okay.
my bad. We actually keep an
No,
extra
no, all
guy
good, all
just
good.
just because somebody misses pretty frequently. So, which is family stuff. We're very fortunate. We got really good guys. So usually it's family stuff when they miss. It's not like the norms. So very fortunate team. So yeah, you've got those 10 guys are in the field. We got a summer guy who's got, I think, 2 weeks left. He's kind of a floater. He's picking stuff up for us and doing things like that. He's been doing that. And then you've got the project manager, the sales guy / customer care, myself and my wife.
Wow, man, that's awesome. And so how do you run this empire? How do you communicate a message down? Is it through a meeting? Is it through an in-person meeting, a Zoom meeting? How do you handle that?
So we've grown quick. 6 years, 5.5. We've gone from me to this. So we're not real great at it yet. To be honest with you, we're in the process of implementing those systems. Hired some coaching, and we're gonna start kind of diving into that, putting some systems into place, some structure, some accountability. Accountability is a big word we've talked about recently, just because, like you said, there's a lot of layers to that. When you've got a customer, project manager, sales guy, the crew, communication all through that is something we're trying to tighten down now. Just upgraded softwares, so that's going to be a big part of that to kind of help
Oh,
that
that's epic.
communication.
That's awesome. And 2 things you mentioned, coaching and then software. So who are you guys looking at for coaching?
So I've been a part of the contractor fight and have used their sales training for a while now. Been a part of that group for a little over 2 years, and then we just signed up with Breakthrough Academy. Went through their boot camp for 6 weeks, and then I just signed up for a little more extensive coaching with them. They're going to help structure everything. They're kind of business systems type coaches, so we're pretty excited about that. And then software, we've used LMN for a long time, and we're about to jump up to Aspire landscape software and use it.
Spire. Ooh, I haven't heard of that yet. I thought you were gonna say something like Java or something else. What's Spire about? What is that one? Is
Aspire
that
is a
similar?
landscape specific software based in our industry. So it's very industry specific. Got A lot of information, a lot of details, a lot of capabilities, communication, things like that, all the way through it. So pretty excited about it. We spent the last 3 months getting it set up. So
That's
it's
pretty
finally set
awesome.
up, switching over to it, ready to roll.
Does that come set up out of the box, or do you have to work with your team to
You work with their
put it in
team.
your environment?
It's been about, I think I've spent maybe 5 to 6 hours a week over the past 3 months, just setting it up, getting all of our
Oh, wow.
information in, moving jobs over, getting contacts imported, like just getting it set up the way that we want it to run. And now we're kind of starting to
And
implement it and get
you're
it
doing that
going.
yourself, or they do that for you?
So they basically give you a project manager, and then they give you a plan. Basically, you go through, click step by step. They walk you through it. You meet them once a week. It was awesome, honestly, the way that they handled all that.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And what about how do you guys go about billing customers? Is all that done through like your CRM too or
Yeah.
Element when you guys
Yep.
are using it?
Yep. You do that, click that, and then they'll get a QuickBooks link, and everything's kind of invoiced through QuickBooks. ACH links. Most people pay with that. Credit card fees if they want those, but most of that is just through QuickBooks.
QuickBooks. Awesome, bro. And let me ask you, because it's a common question that is often thrown around in this space too. It's like when you were when you were a smaller contractor and you didn't have all these jobs going on at once, you had less staff. At what point did you decide to get some sort of software like a CRM, like Element? Do you
Immediately.
recommend that right away, or do you have to recommend waiting a little bit?
We signed up for LMN at the end of the first year. Like I said, I was at a bigger company in town. They implemented a software down the road, and I saw the value in it. Just in time bidding, you can we track our guys' hours through it. We track our spending through it on the jobs. So it's kind of an all-in-one thing to keep up with everything.
One, that's the beauty of it too. Plus, you don't have to keep repeating things, right? I mean, I'm sure that with Element, all the field guys have access to it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, they clock into it. Yeah, so like it's their
That's
time
pretty
clock
cool.
basically. Geostamp time clocks where they clock into the jobs, hours get, allocated to the job, their pay rates are allocated to the job. Like it tracks everything kind of down to the minute.
Down to the minute. That's sick. And how do you, on that same topic, how do you guys bring in leads? Like, because of course, business is just bringing in leads and fulfilling it with amazing guys, right? And you have an amazing team, but how do you guys actually get that word? I'm sure it's a lot of word of mouth down there too, right?
So the first 5 to 6 years has been word of mouth. We have built some good relationships with some repeat people, some contractors and landscape designers, architects, things like that. We've kind of ramped up social media lately, which is kind of where we met. And then,
Yeah.
we revamped the website last year, spent some money on it. So it's kind of all in one for us right now is kind of branding. We've looked at some ads, Google ads and things like that, but that's a very new market to me, something we haven't. Selling for 2 crews or 1 crew and a half isn't a big deal, but when you're selling for 3 crews, like you need some more leads, So that's kind of where we're at now. Just trying to ramp that up a little bit, something we're pretty aware of.
That's awesome. And then and so what happens, for example, if of course, if you guys get a bunch of leads, you guys would schedule them out. But whatever happens whenever you have crews, you have guys that want to work, but there's not leads. What do you do at that point? Did the guys just
We haven't had that
pivot
issue
or
yet, so that's the
really?
no.
That's awesome.
No, we pushed the schedule out a couple of months last year, and then once it got to a point is when we jumped up to that 3rd crew. So far we haven't had that issue. So hopefully that's not an issue. That's why we're trying to be aware of what's going on right now and notice calls are a little bit slower than they usually are. Let's do something to ramp this up here in a couple months. So I'm sure it takes a couple of months. Like once you start something, you'll find out if it works a little bit further down the road. So just trying to stay in front of that.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of people make that mistake of it's like, oh shit, it didn't work after 2 days. It's not. Let me stop it.
Yeah.
It's like, but you have to let it learn. You have to let it do its thing. and you you don't want to change too many things at once, because then if you keep changing things, something works, but you already changed it, then it's hard to go back. You're still in the same game, so that is true. And when you got that new crew, Dan, how did you go about training everybody? Because that's a big deal too. You want to make sure that people are doing quality work on that fit your standards as a company. So how do you go about training? Do you do that yourself?
Uh, Martin, our project manager, is on each site multiple times a day. Fortunately, we've been able to attract some talent here, so we try to pay a little higher than average, which attracts some talent. Word gets out about that, so we've got some really good guys. Um, so they come in pretty skilled already, and then Martin and is by site every day to just kind of make sure nothing goes haywire.
Let's go. Let's go. And that saves you a lot of time, because I'm imagining that before he was there as a project manager, that was probably your responsibility.
Yeah, he was on one of our crews. So he and I have known each other about 10 years. He was one of our install foremen, basically built some big stuff for us, was managing sites basically on his own. I didn't have to manage his sites. He was kind of handling that on his own. So he and I talked and we've ramped it up, and he's managing 3 sites now. Which originally it was 2 sites, and then now it's 3 sites. So he's crushing it right now.
That's epic right there. And how busy is he? Is he hands off as far as, will he get down and dirty if needed, or does he
If he
just more
has
bounce
to,
around and
yeah, if he has to. But I mean, he comes in the mornings and checks the guys' times from the day before, pulls in all the receipts from the trucks or vendors or anything we need, and all that will get put in the software so we know where jobs are at. And then from there, he'll start his day, kind of make rounds where he's needed, make sure materials are where they're needed, and that way the guys can just kind of be on site. They don't have to run around, pick stuff up, because it's a huge waste of time.
true, true. And a guy like that you brought him over from the field. I mean, I wouldn't say he's more office or back end work. I say he's still out there. But how does a person transition into that? Did he have any issue with that at all, as far as him missing the field, or he was just rolling with it?
No, he was excited about the role. When he first moved over, we had some team members that were a little harder to manage. Weren't as skilled as what we thought they were. But we've moved on from each other since then, and that was a big headache at first, a huge stress, and we've kind of transitioned now, and I'm pretty pumped about the team we have. So it's very different for him now. He's not. This sounds messed up, but he's not having to babysit anybody right now. You know what I mean? He's more support for these guys than like overlording, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to. He's just there to make sure they got what they need, answer questions, get questions back, and that sort of thing. He's not babysitting anymore. So that was super helpful. That was a big frustration at first.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. Especially, like, it does make the manager's job harder if the guys that he's managing are difficult to deal with. So that is true. And now that he doesn't have to deal with that, it makes sense that he's probably more efficient. It's less of a hassle to do that role. So that's pretty cool. And I know that your wife is also, you mentioned she's also very involved in the business. What has her role been like from the beginning, and how has it evolved with you guys as you guys have grown?
She started out as unpaid help, basically. You know, because I would work during the day in the field, and she was doing things with the kids and this and that. So I would call her. She would run to the bank. She would do takeoffs on landscape drawings. She would kind of do
Really?
anything I needed to. Yeah, like pull plant lists and things like that. Um, then kind of as we started to transition, she's taken over basically all the admin roles. Payroll, she handles that. She handles all the bill pay, sort of all the back end type stuff. Because she doesn't have a ton of landscape experience, but is just happy to, kind of help and be a part of this.
That's awesome. And I mean, you mentioned she was doing landscape design work. That's pretty intense. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Well, we were doing it off designs. So like we get designs sent to us a lot. So she would basically take off the material lists and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't actually like drawing one of these like 3D blueprints or
Man,
3D software.
we outsource every bit of that. So if you want me to draw it, it looks like a cartoon. Looks like my one
With
of my
stick
kids.
figures like
Yeah,
bobbing around.
one of my kids drew it and like colored it in with a pencil. This is what it looks like. So I try to avoid drawing if I can help it. Designing, it's not my cup of tea.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. Actually, like I'm sure you guys get calls all the time. Like you guys have built such a reputation that you get calls from a high end customer and they want something super custom, super cool, unique to them. How do you guys handle that situation? Because of course you don't want to go at it without a design, because then it's just a mess trying to do things on the fly, on site. And you know that they need a design. Do you tell them that you do it and then you sub it out, or do you have them reach out to a designer themselves?
It depends on the scope of the project and where they're at in the process. Um, a lot of customers, what we'll do is meet with them up front. And if it's something that we kind of get a feel that we're going to need a design, Carrick's Design Group is a local design firm that they do all of our design work. So we'll call them, and sometimes we'll just go to that initial meeting together. Carrick's will do the design, homeowner will deal with them. Carrick's will charge them for the design. We'll build what is designed. So that's kind of worked out well so far for us.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool right there. And on average, I mean, how much would you, or how much does a design cost? Because I know it's pretty time consuming to do that.
It
Takes a lot of
is.
skill.
Yeah, and it depends on how complicated it is. You know what I mean? Is there a lot of hardscapes? Is there a lot of landscape? A lot of elevation change? But I mean, a good design, you're probably spending anywhere from, depends on what you want too. Like if you want the full 3D and then a set to build off of, I mean, you could be anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 for a set of landscape designs.
And that end project would be what, like a 50K project or so?
It could be
30K
anywhere
project?
from 50 to 500, to be honest, or more.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, you got to think, once you start getting retaining walls and pools and all that stuff kind of mixed in, it kind of stacks up quick.
That's true. And I mean, well deserved too on the designers. And I've actually had a couple of guys on the podcast that are designers only. Like that's literally all they do. And you see them on Instagram, they have like 100,000 followers. It's funny, a lot of them have more followers than the actual installers.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's more of a visual. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand that actually. I'd imagine that it's harder to install it than to design it, but it is hard to design too. So it's like, shit, which one is more difficult?
Man, I don't know. I feel like the install part, but I'm a little biased, you know? So, yeah. Yeah,
This
you can
guy's
put
biased.
anything on paper, but putting it in the ground is a different animal. So
It's definitely, and on the design, we're just looking at a finished product, but like actually removing things, taking things out that were there before. Yeah, it's I can imagine. And what about something like, because again, I've had designers on here, and they're, would you say that what you guys build on designs, do you follow it by the dot, what's on there, or
yeah, for the most part. If something doesn't work, we've got a good enough relationship with the people we work with to call and just be like, hey, you know, this doesn't work here because of this and this. We can do it this way or we can do it that way. And then
yeah, like for example, if there's some sort of drain that's underground and you can't move it or
can't
you
move
can't
it.
redirect it,
Yeah,
at that point you can't
yeah,
proceed.
yeah. I mean, my opinion on that is I get paid to landscape and hardscape, you know, and they get paid to design. So like, they've got a lot of education, a lot of time in design, you know. So it's like that's their expertise. So why not lean on that and not just take it into my own hands as a landscaper and be like, nah, this will look better like this, you know. So it's all about conversations, you know what I mean? Like it's give and take. Because those conversations,
Yeah,
like they understand that sometimes something needs to move, something needs to change, and as long as the end result is still really pretty, that's all that matters.
yeah, man, 100%. And I love the openness to it too. You know, just have the conversation instead of letting it steam on for a long time. And then, yeah, I can see how that can end the relationship, right? If there's no
Yeah,
communication,
exactly.
gotta hide something.
Yeah,
So that's pretty cool too. And I want to get some advice from you too, Dan, for the landscapers that are listening that are new or that are in lawn care or that are doing landscaping. What would you advise to them? Like, let's say that it's a lawn care dude. He's done a couple small patios, nothing super professional, nothing super complex, but he wants to transition into doing something like what you're doing, where you're doing complete backyard renovations, super duper cool outdoor living projects. How would you recommend them to start getting to that point?
Um, Normally there's dudes in the industry in the market that would be willing to help teach, help educate, help you kind of learn. So that's what something I would recommend. Manufacturers as well have some education. I would learn how to do it and why you do it certain ways first, and then also what to charge, because it's easy to throw out a big number. Like if somebody wants this big patio and you say it's $15,000, sounds like a ton of money. But once you start realizing what this stuff costs, what it costs you to do it, how long it takes, you may finish a $15,000 patio and not make much money. So knowing what to charge too would be a huge, huge thing.
Wow, that's super true right there. Knowing the numbers and how do you go about that? What's the best way to tracking them? I know there's a lot of software out there, but how do you go about it?
We use software. Like I told you earlier, we were part of the contractor fight. They've got a know your numbers course that I recommend to anyone who tells me they have anything to do with business. Basically, kind of breaks down your costs per guy with overhead and what to actually charge per hour to make sure that you've covered your costs. And I, as a business owner, didn't understand that until like year 4.5, and it's something I'm still working on now. So if you can find that, learn that, know what to charge, that's a big one, huge one.
Knowing what to charge, not getting big number syndrome.
Yeah, because I
What
mean,
else do
you
you
got to
think
know,
that
you
you
know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to do all this work and then not make any money, you know? And then if you like, because I made the mistake early on of like, because we were doing some cool projects early on, and like there wasn't a ton of money in the bank. And I thought, shit, if I could add an extra crew, what that'll do is double the amount of work I can do, which will double the amount of money I can make. And that, if you're not making money with one crew, you're not making money with two. You're just doubling up your problem. So it
holy shit.
yeah,
That's a gold nugget right there.
it's
If
very
you're not
true.
making money with one crew, you're not gonna make any money with two crews.
Yeah.
Holy shit. How would you go about that if it's you and you have enough money to either, put together a whole new crew, right? Maybe get a van, maybe get a truck, trailer, everything. Would you do that or would you double down on that one crew until they're like kind of maxed out a little bit?
I think you max out that crew. I've got a local mentor in town. They average, pretty good per guy. So it's like that's my target right now is to creep up where he's at. We're probably 2/3 of the way to where he's at per guy. So it's like I've got a lot of efficiency that I'm missing somewhere. So like the size we're at now, we'll stay at for a long time until we can max out our efficiencies. Which that's where the software comes into play. Is I bid a job and it's bid at a certain margin, and then if I'm not hitting that margin on every job, I've got room to improve. Whether that's the crew, whether that's me as a sales guy and a bidder, like there's room to get better at that because something's missing. Either the labor's going over, there's not enough time to get the job done on my end as a bidder. I miss materials. So like until you get all that stuff nailed down, like I said, doubling crews, you're just gonna double that headache. So more money will come in faster, but it'll also go out just as fast. So
Man, but I love that frame that you took there too. It's like that something is wrong and you can fix it. Like not saying you specifically, but if something
no,
is wrong with
yeah,
any business, it can be fixed. It's just taking a look at the numbers. What is it? Is it the crew? Is it the numbers? Is it me? But I
yeah,
love that mindset that you can figure it out instead of saying, "Oh fuck, it's not working. I can't."
yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense to live the same month over and over. You know what I mean? Like you either do that and struggle, or you kind of figure out what's going on, fix it, and get things right, you know. And we're in that process now. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it looks cool on Instagram and all this, but it's like, we're trying to make sure that, like, if a project's bid for 20 days, it takes 20 days, not 25 days, you know? So that's something we're working through now, is just trying to tighten all that stuff up so that it all matches.
100%, 100%. And do you think the coaching is going to help with that too? Or is the coaching more of business related, managing the numbers aspect of it?
Oh, it's been both so far. Something I would recommend to anyone because I was the guy who couldn't afford it for a year. You know, it's not cheap, a couple $100 a month. I take that back, 600, $700 a month. I was the guy that couldn't afford it, you know, for a full year after I found the program. So I just kind of dabbled with my toe in the water, watched the free content, didn't really implement. And then after that year, jumped in and went all the way in. And then after that, like, things have kind of taken off. You know, we're growing pretty significantly.
That's pretty cool. And
So,
it's only, and the moon is only, the sky's the limit, because as you, like you mentioned, your numbers get more consistent on every job, the time frame gets more consistent on every job, things are just going to keep improving.
correct.
And then you'll be able to get even another crew without the headache. That's
One of
the
these
key.
days. One of these days, man. Calm down. Slow down. Yeah. We'll figure out how to run these exactly the way we want, which we're fortunate. Like I said, I feel like we're better than we've ever been. So I'm pumped about where we're headed. But it's
Yes, sir.
still
Yes,
still
sir.
got to make
And
some
Dan,
tweaks.
let me get your take too on this. So, of course, I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you have a business to run. I want to ask you this: for that landscaper that's listening, whether he's in hardscaping already, or he's that guy that we just talked about that's like in between the two, what's some advice that you would give to one of them that wants to quit? Because I'm sure you've had some tough times as a business owner. They're like, "Fuck, this is just not working. The numbers are not being profitable. We're doing beautiful projects. We're not profiting." They feel like quitting. What would you say to a guy like that, or
I
a
mean,
girl like that?
I think you find other business owners. Whether some markets are weird because they don't want to, like, people compete or whatever, but like, I talked to at least 5 other companies in town, because you're not alone. You know, like, you feel alone, because I've been there. Everybody that's been in business has been there, where you feel like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it another month. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit this or hit that. Like, everybody's been there, you know, and knowing you're not alone. And then Alex Ramosi says, just the point of business is to play the game another day. So, like, taking that look at it and just keep the doors open, keep going, get it out. You got to figure out what to charge. You know what I mean? Like, what to charge and why you're charging it. And then a lot of business owners don't know that. And it's something, like I said, I didn't know until someone told me I didn't know, you know? So you kind of dive into that. Because, like I said, I worked at some other companies in town, man. So I knew what their hourly rates were. I knew what their material markups were. But that was for their business, not for mine. So that would be, if it gets discouraging, I know, but like, keep going. But then start trying to figure out why you're in that spot, what it is, you know?
Instead of just accepting it for what it is.
Yeah, like a
God,
mentor is a big thing too. If you can find a local mentor in town, like I said, I've got a mentor in town who's been in this industry a long time, has lived a lot of those days, like you were just asking, told me about those days, and then showed me where he's at now. And it's a lot of hope, you know, like, shit, I can do this, you know? So that's someone, and I can call him, you know what I mean? So, like, that's having somebody you can trust, and someone who will listen to you talk, who's been there, tell you it'll be all right, and then maybe even kick you in the ass if you need it. That's a lot of value in that too.
1,000%. I couldn't agree more. And I'm big into coaching myself as well. And Dan, you know what? I do want to be respectful of your time here. I don't want to keep holding you, but I really appreciate you being on here. If the audience does have a question for you, Dan, or if they want to reach out, would that be okay with you
Oh
if
yeah,
they hit you up on Instagram or anything?
yeah, anytime.
Cool, cool. And what's the best way for them to reach you?
Instagram's fine. Email's fine. If you go to the website, you can find my email on there. Or it's just my name. It's just Daniel at the company name, Magnolia Landscape Construction.com. Any way's fine. I mean,
Gotcha. And what's your Instagram tag for the company?
it's at Magnolia Landscape Construction. Let me double check that
Magnolia
though.
Landscape Construction. Awesome. And I'll share it too on the show notes and everything.
Yeah,
So they'll be able to reach you there. Anybody, I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Dan. Uh, Amazing gentleman doing amazing things with his company, and anybody that needs to listen to it, his advice, it's like, if you're down, figure out why it is, but just don't quit, because like he mentioned about Alex Ramosi, the game of business is just staying alive one more day and giving it another shot.
yeah. Just keep it going. Yeah.
Keep going. Yes, sir. And those are going to be the wrapping words here. But definitely reach out to Dan if you guys have any questions. Reach out to me if you have any questions for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.